Something I used to do for Faster Fight stories is read through them and note any interesting details that I noticed, and at the end of those videos I would always discuss a theory that I come up with based around the story. Recently I decided to revisit this trend within the Flesh, where I came up with an idea that could connect to Patient 46, but recently someone asked me when I would be doing this for Tales from the Pizzaplex. I've only read each story of the series once, so it's probably wise to reread the stories and note interesting details, just like I did for Fazbear Frights. For this video I'm going to be revisiting the first story of Tales from the Pizzaplex, Frailty, and I'll be discussing another idea that I have that could connect to Patient 46 as well. After this video, my next theory will be all about Patient 46 and the GGY story, but it's best to watch this one first so I can get some extra ideas across. Some of the details I mention in this story will be brand new, and others may be ones that people have talked about before. So, without further ado, I hope you all enjoy, and let's get started. Number 1. The pendant Jessica has is just like the one in the Fazbear Frights epilogues and To Be Beautiful, meaning it is likely made of the same thing. Remnant. Jessica uses this pendant to scratch shards off and onto the bodies of sick kids, and she does this to a dead kid at the beginning of the story, and the kid comes back to life. This elaborates a bit more on the abilities of Remnant, as while it was implied before, it's now confirmed in this story that Remnant can literally bring dead people back to life. This begs the question of whether or not this has happened before. The two main examples of this that are debated are Michael Ashton in Sis Location and Carlton in the Fourth Closet. However, both of them are spoken to as if they're not dead yet. Baby tells Michael that he won't die, and Carlton is told that he will die if he doesn't take a piece of Michael Brooks. So I don't think that they were revived, but it's interesting to think about whether or not anybody else in the series has been revived by Remnant. Number 2. This is something MatPat brought up in one of his videos. Multiple times throughout the story while mopping, Jessica said, "to and fro," repeatedly. Because Jessica was rebuilt using a bunch of scrap metal parts, it's entirely possible that some of the parts used to rebuild her were from staff bots, since we see staff bots in Security Breach mopping. I will say though that I don't think that this would apply to Gregory were he to be a robot, as he seems to be built as an actual robot, not rebuilt from a human. But I do think that the observation of Jessica being made from pieces of staff bots does make sense. Number 3. All of us know that Frailty and To Be Beautiful are pretty closely intertwined. I did a video a couple months ago going over how I think that Tales from the Pizzaplex is running in parallel with Fazbear Frights, and I of course discussed Frailty and To Be Beautiful's connections. One of the points that I made was the ages of the protagonists. While it's never explicitly stated in the story, it's implied based on her actions and the actions of people around her that Sarah is somewhere between 13 and 15 years old. Towards the beginning of Frailty, there's a guy named Cullen talking to Nurse Macy about Jessica, saying how she's really off, and Nurse Macy tells him that he was probably at an awkward stage when he was 14. That, coupled with the setting of her school throughout the story and it blatantly being said later on in the story, tells us that Jessica is 14 years old, which matches the age range of Sarah and To Be Beautiful. Number 4. Another similarity between Frailty and To Be Beautiful is the circumstances behind Sarah and Jessica's comeuppance. Both of them face off against Eleanor, or Eleanor in quotations, and wish for something, but both of them actually wish to be beautiful. Obviously we know Sarah did, but how do we know that Jessica did? Throughout the story, there's some people that say that Jessica is beautiful. At a certain point in the story, it's actually said that there was a time when all Jessica wanted was to be lovely, and now she is, but at the cost of her being scrap metal. Number 5. The things Eleanor does in Fazbear Frights are very similar to what Circus Baby and Ennard did to Michael in Sister Location. Both situations are a red and white character with pigtails and green eyes manipulating someone and then stealing their body and pretending to be them for an amount of time. In Frailty, we have a girl who was a victim of Eleanor, and she is compared to a zombie. This seems to be trying to hammer home the point of Eleanor's actions and Circus Baby's actions being connected, as Michael is commonly compared to a zombie since he's basically a rotting corpse that's still moving when under the control of Ennard. I'm not trying to defend my Eleanor Baby parallel belief. In fact, I have a different idea that I'm going to talk about later in this video. I'm just saying. Number 6. To gather supplies to work on their robot, Robert suggests that he and Jessica go to the junkyard. However, Jessica instantly shoots down this idea, rushing to leave and telling him that he should go without her, lying that she had to go to work. She had felt faint and seemed really traumatized by Robert's suggestion. This is interesting because in To Be Beautiful, the junkyard is where Sarah finds Eleanor. Given Jessica's reaction to it, it seems like she also found Eleanor, or whatever she interacted with, in the junkyard as well. Number 7. Something that Jessica has from her past is a white rabbit's foot. This used to be like a good luck charm for her, but now she just kept it as a reminder of who she used to be and would never be again. This is very interesting because who do we know from the Pizzaplex era of the FNaF timeline that is a white rabbit? Vanny. Now, I'm not going to say that Jessica is Vanny, that would be just stupid, and it's already clear that Vanessa is Vanny, but this does seem to suggest that Jessica has something to do with Vanny, but what exactly that is, who knows. Number 8. In Room for One More, we're told about Stanley's ex-girlfriend named Amber. Remember that. Room for One More, ex-girlfriend named Amber. Now if we fast forward to Blackbird, we have Noel's girlfriend who is also named Amber. However, before they start dating, she randomly interrupts Noel's hangout or work sessions with Sam. There's one scene in the story where they're eating pizza in a restaurant and Amber shows up saying, "Do you have room for one more?" Room for One More, the story where another Amber named character is. There's a joke where a character who has the name of a character in another story says the name of the other story that they're in. Got it? Good. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is because something very similar happens in this story. Nurse Macy keeps finding random scrap metal unbeknownst to her from Jessica. She believes that this is someone pulling a prank. When she speaks to Father Jeremiah about it, he tells her that he hopes that she finds the pranksters. Prankster is a Fazbear Fright story with the main character being named Jeremiah. What a coincidence. Number 9. This is an idea that I came up with based on a discovery by a YouTuber named Defender. This video was sent in a group chat I'm a part of, and it's actually a really cool discovery. I honestly would have expected his video to blow up by now, but it hasn't, so if you haven't checked it out yet, the link will be in this video's description if I remember. If I don't remember, then remind me in the comments, or go check my community tab as I posted the video there a couple weeks ago. In the main lobby of Monty Golf, there's this large pipe that leads into this random circle, something no one would think twice about. But there's a few very small steps up onto this circle thing, and what Defender found was that there are actually human footprints on it. But what's weirder is that there's human footprints from the left foot, but none for the right foot. Instead, you can see a strange looking shape on the right side. The reason I'm bringing this up is because I think that this could be a situation very similar to the one with Jessica, a person replaced with scrap metal parts slowly transforming from human to scrap metal. Illusion discs simply manipulate people's minds, but the pendants and tales from the Pizzaplex and Frights work a little bit different. The pendants don't seem to have illusion discs, as they don't have the high-pitched sounds or anything. They seem to create the supposed illusions through different means, not through manipulating minds, but through literally manipulating the actual appearances. In the 10th Fazbear Frights epilogue, Larson literally pushes Sam out of the way of the train, being the one to save his life. Through a vision created by Eleanor, Larson was able to change the events of the past, somehow. Who knows how, but if Eleanor could do that, then she could probably do something like this too. Notice how the footprints just randomly disappear, almost as if the person creating them disappeared into thin air, or rather transformed back into scrap metal parts that the Pizzaplex crew simply cleaned up. But that's all just an idea, and is a bit of a stretch, I will admit, but who knows, I'm just throwing out ideas here. If you think the footprints could be something else, let me know in the comments any ideas you have, because I'm just spitballing. Number 10. Jessica has a nightmare where she's in a void, and around her she could hear sounds. She heard the sounds of metal creaking against metal, and eventually she began to run and heard metal footsteps stomping behind her. Eventually she was caught, and the thing ripped both of her arms off. When I first read this, I thought this represented Jessica's body being torn apart and replaced with metal. And while that could still be the case, if you really think about it, that doesn't make sense. Why would the pendant be taken off her after her arms were ripped off without ever being replaced? It doesn't make sense. But the idea of metal creaking against metal, heavy metal footsteps, and arms being ripped off is very familiar, isn't it? The Mimic in the Tales from the Pizzaplex epilogues. The Mimic Endo is notorious for his heavy metal footsteps, the sounds of creaking metal, and ripping off the limbs of people. But why would Jessica be having a nightmare about the Mimic? Well, it's possible that since the Mimic seems to be possessed by Afton, that it's trying to say that he was involved in what happened to Jessica. But it's unclear. It might not be the Mimic, but I think it makes the most sense given the similarities and the weirdness of the contrary. Number 11. When Jessica rushed to the hospital after prom went terribly wrong, the scrap metal pieces fall from behind her. This is not a surprise, but despite it never happening earlier in the story, Jessica's eyes, forehead, and mouth were all leaking oil. This matches up with what we see from the Stitch Wraith's victims, as whenever the Stitch Wraith kills someone, the victim leaks black oil from their eyes. It also makes sense as Eleanor was part of the reason for the Stitch Wraith killing people, and she, or something similar, is what's responsible for this story. Obviously, the oil is from her scrap metal body, but it seems like something had changed since she never leaked oil earlier in the story. But those are all the details that I noticed in Frailty. But now, let's talk about the idea I have based on this story. I should let you guys know that I don't really believe this idea, kind of like my In the Flesh idea. These are just kind of alternate Patient 46 ideas that I don't really believe, but I'm just throwing out there. I'm going to be talking a bit about spoilers for GGY right now, so if you haven't read it yet and don't want spoilers, then you should probably stop watching. Throughout Frailty, Jessica is constantly said to be very frail, which is obviously due to the remnant pendant shrinking, meaning there's less remnant that's around and keeping her alive and together. And that's also, of course, why the story is called Frailty. In GGY, though, it is revealed that Gregory is actually Patient 46. In my next theory, I'll be going over the how, but right now I want to go over the possible answer as to what. Like I said, I don't really believe it, it's just an idea that I wanted to go over. In GGY, Rab, who is Gregory, or at least a Gregory, is a shorter kid who is often picked on and is even seen as frail. Being picked on and being frail are two things that both apply to Jessica, a victim of Eleanor or her equivalent depending on belief. So why do these two have these similarities? Since Gregory, or a version of Gregory, is Patient 46 who is evil, is it possible that he's actually responsible for Jessica's demise? Think about this. In the Silver Eyes trilogy, Henry makes 4 Charlie robots, one for each different stage of her life. The youngest robot is simply just the Ella doll infected by the emotions of Henry. Every one of the Charlie bots also has a version of Ella inside. The 4th Charlie bot is fueled with the most negative emotion and later becomes Circus Baby, but uses illusion discs and is a bit slimmer. You know who else looks like Circus Baby but slimmer and uses illusions? Eleanor. And 1:35 AM is a story where Ella is the main antagonist, and it just so happens that Eleanor is in control of Ella. Also, Eleanor. I mean, it's basically the same name. Also, I mean, it's not spelled like nearly the same, but like, it's kind of pronounced the same. Eleanor, Eleanor. Yeah, it's the same. So is it possible that Eleanor is a Fazbear Frights version of the 4th Charlie bot? I think it makes sense that it is just the 4th Charlie bot of Fazbear Frights, but infected with agony from possibly the missing children incident, possibly even Henry like the 4th Charlie bot in the Silver Eyes trilogy, or a combination of multiple agonizing events. But what does all this have to do with Gregory? Well, I believe Gregory to be a robot, but Greg in this story is 12. When Tony looks into GGY and the school counselors, he chooses not to look at the ones that worked prior to the last couple years, because the Pizzaplex hadn't been around that long. The word couple obviously means 2. So this story takes place 2 years after the Pizzaplex opens up. Security Breach's Faz Life magazines are said to be quarterly, meaning there's 4 every year, and there are either 19 or 20, I can't remember, but there's 19 or 20 of them, meaning that the Pizzaplex is open for approximately 5 years. That would place GGY 3 years before Security Breach, but Greg is 12 in GGY, meaning that in Security Breach he would be 15. That doesn't make sense based on the way he acts in the game. There's no way Gregory would be 15 unless Rab is an older Gregory robot. This would imply that Gregory has 4 robots just like Charlie did, which if Eleanor is a Charlie bot would compare Gregory to Eleanor. So Gregory being described similarly to Jessica and also being evil, it's completely possible that Gregory, an older Gregory robot, is the Eleanor of our main FNaF universe. However, this entirely depends on your own point of view. Many people believe that the Stitch Wraith Fazbear Frights universe is a part of the games, which I do understand, though disagree with, so if you believe that, then this doesn't work, and it would simply be that Eleanor is the one responsible for Jessica. Although you could also say that Eleanor died before Jessica became like this, and maybe something else was just using Eleanor's MO and is still around. But I'm just here to throw out other explanations, and I do think that this one kind of makes sense. Hell, Eleanor in the Fazbear Frights epilogues is a character who does things kind of behind the scenes and in the shadows, just like Patient 46, further entwining the two, so it's very possible. However, I would just like to say hello to the people of the Reddit Discord when they inevitably make fun of me for coming up with a theory, but I'm just here to give it ideas, and hopefully you guys can get something out of them. But that's everything I wanted to talk about for this video. I hope you all enjoyed, and if you did, make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you want to. If you made it this far, let me know your opinions about Frailty down in the comments, but like I said, I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye guys!